Hey there, wonderful people. Stuart Bell here from Adere. In this episode of The Finnovator, I once again want to share a piece of training content that I produced a number of years back, actually. So this is a little bit older. And what I was trying to do in producing this is give my clients a bit of an overview of marketing as an advice business. And I think the really important point to make before you jump into this, it is a long form piece here, and we cover a lot of ground. Is that in my experience, I've found marketing advice is not like other things. And for a whole bunch of reasons, I will cover off what makes it different and why, as a result, a lot of the time, I've seen it personally and I've experienced it myself, that you get people who are very, very capable when it comes to marketing, but don't necessarily understand the advice proposition and the conversation, or as Naomi Christopher once explained it to me, I don't understand that the proposition you're offering is give me your money and I will give you more money later on. It's an interesting way of putting it, but and why it has a real impact on the way people market. Because I've seen so many situations where businesses have invested a lot of money in marketing with people who know marketing. They're smart people, but they don't necessarily understand the specifics of how advice works, and in particular how money. For all the analysis and the analytical side of it, it is one of the most emotional things that people have in the world. So this is a bit of an overview. As I said, some of the concepts in this have since been updated within the program. So if you're noticing a few things, marketing, particularly digital marketing, can be a bit of a fast-moving feast. But at the same time, some of the key principles around how to build a great marketing message and what to put out there and how to try and get ROI, they're unchanging. So I hope you get a lot from it. It's one of the most populous areas of our program when it comes to modules, because marketing has got everything from referrals to partnerships to content marketing to marketing existing clients, marketing new clients, websites, so many different areas. But I think this will maybe give you an essence of how to start down that path of getting better results in your marketing when it comes to advice. So without any further delay, I'll hand over. Let's jump into the complete marketing system. So let's talk about the marketing system. So for those of you who came to the accelerator, you'll know that right here and now, this is all about marketing. And I'm going to run you through today, I guess, a bit more of the how, because it's all very well to talk a lot about, some of the way that marketers think, what's challenging about doing advice, which I think is important, because marketing has kind of got two parts to it. It's got that empathic thinking like a marketer, trying to understand your target market. But the second part to it is key for me. It's about that point at which we need to go, right, what do we do with it? The big idea here, and I'm going to sort of start on a bit of a tangent, but it is relevant, so stick with me. One of my favorite sort of programs to watch way back was Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations. I don't know if there's any other Anthony Bourdain fans out there, but I loved his stuff, and I was so tragic to hear that he, had struggled with mental illness and took his life. I'm still a big fan of his. But one of my favorite episodes is when he went to Iceland. Now, if anyone's ever sort of been up into the Scandinavian regions, they kind of do things a little bit differently, right? And one of the things that they make, particularly in Iceland, is hakal. Has anyone heard of hakal? Has anyone had hakal? If you do, type it in the box so I can know I'm dealing with someone who is seriously brave when it comes to food. Because hakal, it's a bit of a delicacy. I'm guessing that nobody has. It's a bit of a delicacy, and it's apparently one of the most disgusting foods you can have. And I've eaten natto and everything, but apparently this is next level stuff, right? Let me tell you a bit about sort of how it's made, because I think it's relevant. And I'm always amazed. I'm always amazed at how people come up with these foods. I've always thought about what was the first person to, decide they were going to eat an egg. Sit down there and look at this chicken and go, you know what, the next thing that chicken lays, I'm going to put it in my mouth and eat it. It's kind of weird to me, but you get the idea. So hakal. And imagine this in the context of a sequence that somebody went through to discover this. So the first thing you need to do when you have hakal is you need to take one large shark with poisonous flesh, because the flesh is full of urea, right? Now that's the first thing. You can imagine the first person who caught this shark, they took a bite, fell over dead. Now you normally think that's enough to warn people, let's not do that again. But no, somebody then decided, you know what, let's take that shark, and instead of eating the whole thing, we're going to gut it. We're going to discard the fins, the tails, the innards, the cartilage, and the head, and we'll try it again. And guess what? Carked over dead. So somebody else went, all right, let's try this again. Let's catch it, cut it, then wash it, get the slime and the blood off, and then try and eat it. And sure enough, drop dead. Very poisonous. Someone else went, believe it or not, had another go. They then decided they were going to do all of that, dig a massive, large hole and coarse gravel, preferably a long way from the nearest inhabitable house because it stinks. And they had a bite, and sure enough, they dropped dead too. And the next person said, you know what? I'm not going to eat it straight away. I'm going to leave it for 6 to 7 weeks, maybe 2 to 3 months if it's winter, until it's soft and it smells like ammonium. Then I'm going to pull out the gravel. I'm going to put it in my mouth, and they dropped dead too. Next, someone went, right, you know what? They got it wrong. Let's try it again. I'm going to hang it in a shack with big holes to let the wind in. Make sure there's no sun. I'm going to wait until it's firm and fairly dry for 2 to 4 months, and they drop dead as well. Now, at this point, if you're sitting there thinking, really, do people are keeping going with this? Yep, they are keeping going with it. But someone finally nailed it. They discovered that if you do all of that and then you slice off the crust and cut it into small pieces, then you serve it with a shot of Bremen, which is apparently like a vodka thing, it works. What's the point of this story as it relates to marketing? It's because things in marketing need to happen in a certain order for them to work. Often, you can have the best marketing, the best Facebook campaign, the best webinar, the best whatever. But if it's out of the right order, if you don't do the right things at the right time, if you're not putting together your marketing funnel in the right way, you know, you're like the person who has all the tools, all the gear, but unfortunately it's just not coming together. Does that make sense? Another story that I love around this is a story of I might have told this at the accelerator, but a story of a comedian in New York, and he's playing a comedy club and he's feeling like he's on his game. You know, today's going to be a great day. I've really got this. And he walks in and he's giving the audience his best jokes. He's giving them everything, right? But no one's laughing. And he keeps telling and telling and telling. And sure enough, the more he tells the story, the less people laugh. And the guy's he's getting down and down. And by the end of it, he's broken. And he walks off stage and the person comes along. The guy who owns the comedy club says to him, man, I'm so sorry. I forgot to tell you, we've got a Chinese tour group in and none of them speak English. This is another case of, you know, there was nothing wrong with what he was doing, but it was just the wrong audience. It was the wrong environment. It was the wrong time. He was delivering it the wrong acts to the wrong people. Does that make sense? So today I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what's the right order. What's the marketing done in the right way so you don't end up sort of dying from shark poisoning, or you don't end up sort of playing to a crowd who can't really understand what you're talking about or how it's relevant. Now, I want to sort of get something on the table here, because marketing is often referred to, I've heard it referred to as, you know, that dark art. You know, I don't get it. I don't understand it. We talked a lot about this during that This Is Marketing thing, the accelerator. And man, look, there was a time not that long ago, I'll be honest, where I was sort of being coached. I was reading every marketing thing I could get. I was trying stuff. We were launching Facebook funnels and doing all this sort of stuff. And for whatever reason, I ended up feeling a bit like, you know, my father-in-law, when I put him in front of a computer and we talk about directories and stuff, I just didn't feel, I was like, I don't feel I'm getting this. And this is one of the challenges. Marketing, particularly, you know, when you're trying to put together a funnel and come together, it feels difficult. You know what I mean? Have you ever felt like this? You ever felt like, God, I'm never going to crack this now. I don't understand it. But the thing is, before you can become really, really good at something, there's a point where you have to be kind of incompetent. You know what I mean? And I find that a lot of people with marketing, they try something and they don't feel like they've got it. They don't feel confident. So they just abandon it. But the problem is if you can get comfortable, and it's okay to feel like I'm not getting this, because the truth is that the difference between being incompetent or just really struggling with it and then getting to a point where you're confident is actually a lot smaller than people realize. There are people on the program, Glenn Doherty, who's been cracking away, doing this and slowly learning and learning and learning. And he's becoming more and more confident with his writing and his Facebook funnels. And we were talking about Ruben, who's been doing some online marketing in very, you know, really interesting ways for the past 2 years. And it's starting to pay off. Does that make sense? Cool. I mean, let me know. Do you feel like you're confident with it, or do you feel like it's something you want to crack? I want to just refer and remind you of that thing we spoke about at the accelerator as well, that Tristan Bond said about your business. You know, he said that up to about $1 million. And again, the actual number is kind of arbitrary. It depends on your business. But he says below about $1 million, your challenge is a marketing one. The problem you need to solve for your business is how to market and attract clients. After that, it's a leadership problem. And I really buy into that. I guess one of the things we're going to talk about later on is we're going to talk about, well, is it possible to outsource all of the marketing? Is it possible to give it out to someone and say, you know, do it for me? My take on it is no. I think that I've yet to meet a business that has completely outsourced all their marketing at the very beginning, you know, hand it over to someone, do this, do that, and I'm completely happy with it. My view is that as a business owner, as a leader, as someone who's trying to sell yourself and your services, you need to get to that point where you at least understand how it works before you hand it over. Chief at the Accelerator spoke a lot about this. He talked about the fact that some of the best, most successful business owners, he's worked with other ones who at any point in time, if someone couldn't do something, they knew how to do things in the business. And that was the foundation for it. That makes sense? So we talked about a few different models. First off, we spoke about, that question of why do we start by understanding who the client is. And we talked about the fact that, when you focus on being the expert in something or being an expert for someone, it gives you the ability to go out there and understand them, understand the questions they're already asking in the marketplace. Because you know what? If you can find 10 questions that your target market want answer that nobody else is answering, that's marketing. That then leads to a place where you start to differentiate. Scott Pape, when he writes his marketing or he writes his emails, he's not coming from everybody needs to get advice and pay for it and it needs to be complex. And as a result, people identify because he differentiates his viewpoints from everybody else. Once you've got that, you can go out there with an offer, not an offer like sitting in front of people, but an offer that you can put out there and that will capture the emails and start to build your list, which leads you to a place where you can identify the right channels. And ideally, we're going to talk today about having one channel that works really well for you. And then finally, when you get that in place and you find it's working, you can scale up, you can start investing your money in it. We talked about that model around going deeper. Don't just ask that question about, I work with retirees, but what if there were retirees who own their home outright, who don't have kids, who love to travel and potentially are thinking of moving to a rural area, right? When you get that clear, the problems become simple. We're going to talk a lot about this today. The funnel itself, who are you seeking to attract? How are they going to first find out about you? How are they going to learn about what you do and how it can help? How are they going to realize you can create significant value in their lives? And finally, what's the first step they're going to make? We also dived into the problem map, and I'm going to be shooting through some of the output from that in the next day or two. We talked about if you're an expert when it comes to investments, the kind of questions that people might be asked is, what should I invest in? National or international, ETF's good. Same deal with risk. There's some questions that your market are asking. Cash flow, super, goal setting, retirement planning, structuring, debt. We even talked about how you can go out to resources like BuzzSumo, and straight off the bat, you can actually research the questions that are actually being asked, which is marketing gold. Because if you already know the questions, you just have to step in and answer them in an interesting and differentiated way. We talked about the importance of, differentiating yourself across two axes. And that would work for your business. It works for services. And finally, we covered off on the marketing mix, talking the high level, which we're going to dive into a bit more today, and that one-page proposition. So that's a really fast sort of recap. But the point of going through this is I wanted to remind you there were frameworks, there was ideas, there were models, there was mindsets, there were things we were looking for in the accelerator session, which is all about how to get our head around how to market advice. Now we're going to talk about the technical, the what we actually need to do in terms of activities. Is that cool? The big thing is though, you need to make sure you're employing the right tool at the right time. And I'm going to explain to you why certain tools work at certain places. And equally, I'm going to talk about why certain tools don't work. And I'm going to give you 3 funnels, which pretty much every business could either grab, use, or it's relevant. And at the end of it, you're going to have the opportunity to analyze which one you want to go with, if it's one or more, and go from there. So do me a favor. I would love to know. Let's get a bit of a straw poll. No doubt you've done some marketing. Even those of you who say, I don't market, you've done marketing. You've sent newsletters, or you've networked, or you would have done stuff. So looking back, and it doesn't have to be recent, it can be 5 years back, it can be 2 years back. I want you to type in the box and let me know, if you wouldn't mind, what's one marketing activity that's really worked for you? Really worked. Type in the box and let me know. What's one marketing activity that has really worked for you? Love feedback. Jared, cold calls. Man, do you know what? It's interesting. Cold calls is one of the few sales skills that is really hard to teach. You either love it or you don't. Obviously, you must be pretty good at it, Jared. What's worked for you? Love hate. Yeah, I've heard that before. Nina says 0. I feel like a monkey clapping cymbals overhead when it comes to marketing. I avoid it, to be completely honest. Well, there's a whole module ready to go on the member site from the accelerator. I thought it was probably one of the best marketing sessions that I've had the opportunity to put together. So definitely, if you feel like a monkey clapping cymbals overhead, there's some really good models in that help you to understand it. Face-to-face meetings, David. That's interesting because I wouldn't typically define that as marketing. I would define that as sales. For me, the point at which you go from marketing to sales is when you get feedback from the person in front of you. My definition is Marketing is having to deliver something when you know you're not necessarily getting anything back. And the moment it's a conversation, you're in a sales situation. I've also got a great book. Let me just show you this while everyone else types in their biggest marketing success. Let me show you this, David. So I was given this a while ago by a consultant. It's called What Salespeople Know About Marketing. The other side is What Marketing People Know About Sales. And as you can see, it's a pretty comprehensive guide. Sales and marketing is one of those areas that, they're very, very different beasts. There's a lot in common. But for me, the art of marketing is getting people to come in and have a conversation without necessarily having to have the conversation to do it. I'll tell a little story. When I first launched the Leverage Advice Firm program, I gave it a name called Blue Phoenix. It seemed like a good idea at the time. And I did this whole launch strategy, and I paid a lot of money to be coached on it, and it didn't work. And looking back, I knew why it didn't work. But at the time, I was like, it's totally going to work. I was really excited about it. Thankfully, we managed to get enough people on the program to kick it off. And here we are sort of 4 years later. What didn't work? In the car. Perfect. That makes total sense, Elizabeth. Listening. Perfect. What didn't work for you? Trying to work out. There we go. Facebook ads. Cool, Jared. I reckon that we may be able to sort of help you understand potentially why I didn't. Previous email campaigns. Kelly, we can definitely look at the tone. A lot of emails that go out are just information-based. And the problem is information-based is great, but there's so much information out there that's not what we want to add to. So we're going to talk about conversion stuff. Anything else? Okay. Look, I'm going to crack on, but I'd love to this to be an interactive thing. So let me sort of point out. Perfect. David says the issue we have is we haven't run any sort of structured marketing, have been more focused on sales. Absolutely, which is fine. And most businesses, when they're getting off the ground and they're starting from the beginning, they tend to focus on the sales and the networking and the one-to-one. But as you sort of grow, you want to sort of replace that, because as you get clients on board, you're going to have to work more and more with those kind of clients, train up your staff members. And as a result, you want sort of a marketing system. That's my view on it. Mail outs, but didn't do too much continual. Good, really good pickup, Tori. And we're going to talk about the continual thing. Is that cool? So let's start by talking about some common mistakes that sort of often I see. The first one we're going to talk about today is this idea of offering things too soon. This I've seen this a number of times. The sprinters, they all get together. They're at the Olympics. These guys have trained for 4 years. They've made it through the heats. They've made it to the final. And then in a moment, the gun goes off and they just go too soon and they're disqualified. Now, when I was younger, it used to be a couple of goes at it, but now you're gone. And I can imagine you see that guy on the floor. It's literally 4 years worth of discipline, eating, training, sacrifice, and bang, it's gone in a moment. It's very brutal. And it's kind of like, I've seen it a lot. Particularly, Facebook ad was a good example. You put together a Facebook campaign and it's selling your advice or your free first appointment or your thing, and you put it out there, you invest this money, come and meet with me, we'll do a 15-minute conversation or come to a live event, and then boom, it doesn't work. And the truth is that most people aren't going to engage with you on a certain level until they understand, they know you, they understand what you do, and they trust that what you do can have an impact on them. So too soon is a big one. And I want you to, if you've done stuff before, I want you to look back on this and ask whether potentially the problem was some of the marketing you were doing was the right marketing. It was just a little bit too soon. Man, I have a love-hate relationship with the Roadrunner. It used to drive me bonkers as a kid, but it's such an iconic cartoon. And there was always that moment where, the Wile E. Coyote would sort of run and run and run, and then he'd kind of drop off a cliff. Another issue to look out for is, let's say you'd run a Facebook campaign and people hit your website and they come in and they're looking around and there's nothing. There's maybe some blogs. There's maybe a button that says, book a call, but there's nothing else. In other words, your funnel is missing a piece. Particularly if you're not capturing the email, particularly if the offer you're putting out there is just not quite on the money, you're going to end up doing a lot of work, but there's no logical next step. So we're going to fix that today. This is a big one. I reckon I've seen more money wasted by advice firms looking for a silver bullet than any other thing. People going, I want leads tomorrow. You will have all had an email or one of those messages on LinkedIn. I can get you 5 to 10 to 15 prospective leads the next 2 days or whatever. I don't know if anyone's ever tried that. I've yet to hear anybody who's tried it say anything other than it didn't really work. And the truth is that there's a lot of marketers out there who will, because they're marketers, they'll turn around and tell you, yeah, we can fix it. We can do this. And truthfully, if you want leads tomorrow, if it's desperate, if you really need to get leads, then this is not a marketing problem. This is a networking, partnership, and cold calling problem. Does that make sense? But if you are looking to build a structured funnel, then you need to step back and realize there's a process to it, there's a system, and you will get there sooner than you think you will. It won't feel like it at the beginning, but by the time you get there, you'll have a repeatable, structured system for getting there, and you'll start to realize that the journey to getting this right isn't overnight, but jumping off it is the worst possible thing you can do. The other mistake I often see people do, and I don't know if you've seen this, I've seen a few coaches I know. Every time they publish a blog, what are they doing? They go, here's a little thing I want to talk about, and then boom, here's the thing I want to sell. Sell, sell, sell. Buy my thing, buy my thing. And then you don't hear from them again for 3 months, and then suddenly it's buy my thing, buy my thing. This week, I received an email from two coaches. I haven't heard from them in 4 months. Do you think they're reaching out to say, hey, Stu, how you doing? What have you been up to? How can I help you? No, they're reaching out saying, I've got a course to sell. We're relaunching our products. Love it if you share it with your clients. Now, don't get me wrong. If one of you comes up to me and says, do you know someone who does this? I'll be like, yeah. But nobody wants to hear from people that are just selling, selling, selling. And particularly if they don't know you, understand you, or even trust whether you can make a difference. That makes sense? The final thing is probably the opposite, which is you produce a bunch of emails, you send out mail outs, you do all this great content, information, you know, stuff which is really good. And your clients go, you know what, this is fantastic. This is great content, but you never actually ask. You never say, hey, you know what? If you like this, I'm running a workshop, or I'm doing a boardroom session, or I've got this white paper, or alternatively, I'm going to meet with 5 clients the next 10 minutes. In other words, you never just get on the front foot every night, now and again, and go, look, if you want to work with me, this is what we can do. Here's the opportunity if you step forward. A bit of benefit and a bit of scarcity. Does that make sense? Now, do me a favor, just quickly. Of those 5, and Elizabeth, I will go back and just go through them again. Is there anyone that you think you identify with, that you think is probably, if you look back at what you've done, you may have fallen prey to that? Did you potentially go out there with a campaign which is all about, you don't know me, but why don't you have a discovery session with me? Or you don't really understand what I do, but why not come along to a live event? Have you been guilty of going out there with Facebook campaigns but not capturing the email? Or alternatively, capturing the email and not doing any follow-up? Have you been guilty in the past of looking for other people to kind of do it for you, looking for the silver bullet, and maybe got burned a little bit? Have you, or maybe you've seen people who just, there's too much sales in their emails and it's infrequent, and potentially never offer people the next step? Where are you at? What do you identify with? If it's none, just put none in the box, because then I'll know that at least you are all of the above, says Kelly. Hey, Kelly, I'm by the way, this isn't me saying, I've never made these mistakes. I reckon I've made all of these mistakes. I reckon I've looked back at content I've written and gone, geez, that's so one-dimensional, and sell. Inconsistency across the board. None at the start, really cool. All right, none and all of them. That's cognitive bias in words. That is, love it. Okay, good to know. Okay, let's crack on. So let's talk about if we get it right. If we get it right, we build some roads. Taki Moore, have I spoken to you a lot about? He talks about getting an email from a client. Elizabeth says, all in benefit scarcity. Love it. He says that he got an email from a client saying, look, I need some help with my coach. Hey, Mary, welcome. Yeah, he said he got an email from a client saying, hey, I've been looking for someone to help me with my marketing and this, and this. And man, everywhere I look, I see you. All roads seem to be leading to you. And Taki sort of laughed and went, well, I've been building a lot of roads. And this is what we want to do. We want to build streets and roads and sequences that ultimately end with them picking up the phone, dropping you an email, coming and meeting you, and all the rest of it. I want you to build a platform. Now, it doesn't have to be a wide platform. We're not talking about, going out and talking to the world, but I want you to build a way that you can get your message that we worked on at the accelerator, the themes, the client engagement, all that sort of stuff, but you get a message out there so the right people can grab it and then come closer into your world. I want you to build momentum. Those of you who've done the totally templated module will know there's something called the performance curve. And it works really easily. The idea that, when you start something off, hopefully this is going to work. Yeah. When you start something off down here, you're kind of going, right, I want to get there. And then you start doing something. And most people reach this point where they've been working really, really hard. And they're kind of going, I feel like I'm not making any progress. And they kind of think that this line or the progress is a flat line. Works with financial planning, by the way. Clients feel this, this is the same with everything from sports to fitness to wealth creation. It's only until about the 75% mark that things start to kick off. And then you've got another thing at about the 90% mark where you go from doing well to, whoa, that just exploded. But if you're there and you're looking up, if you're looking at that marketing guru who's just made $2 million off brand new leads in the last 3 years, you're thinking, geez, it's going to be 5 or 6 years. What you don't realize is that you're 75% of the way. That makes sense? That's a great tool, by the way, to explain to clients, particularly early stage clients, why, reaching that point and going, oh, it's not working, shiny thing, going back to the beginning is not the right thing. If you believe in the strategy and it's the right strategy, sticking with it is important. Einstein described compounding as the eighth wonder of the universe. The end game, I think, is what Peter Drucker described, which is the, I'm going to move that actually. He talked about the fact that the purpose of marketing is to make selling unnecessary. And truthfully, if you get this right, you'll get that day, if you haven't had it already, where people come in and go, hey, I've been reading your stuff. I've watched your videos. I know all about you. Wouldn't mind sitting down and talking about whether you can help me out. And that is the point at which you're having a consultation instead of a sales appointment. Does that make sense? Here's the problem. There's so many bloody models. I signed up for Kajabi when we moved across, and Brendan Bashard's, we've got his promotional offer blueprint. We've got his free report blueprint. I've got an OVO pipeline. We've got the Amazon sale page. We've got the sale page pipeline. We've got general sales funnel. We've got the sale. You know what I mean? Am I alone in that? In kind of feeling like everywhere I look, there's webinar funnels, follow-up funnels. You're kind of looking at it and going, God damn, that's all very complicated. So how about we just make it really simple? Yeah? We're going to talk on this. Really, you need to know, recap again, that your funnel has 4 stages. It starts with you needing to let the people you want to work with, people who need your expertise that you want to be an expert in, let them know you exist. And we do that by answering questions. At the top of the funnel, it's all problem solving, no selling. At some point, we've answered their questions so well that you offer a value add piece of content and they go, do you know what? That seems like a logical thing. I'd like to grab that. And you get the email. Now you've got the opportunity to move them into understanding what you do. There's a difference. Knowing you exist, I'm a financial planner, I'm an accountant, I'm a broker, I'm in this area, I work with these people, and understanding what you do, we're going from headline to proposition. You with me? And so now we're going to start to link the proposition, the fact that they know these problems with that's how they link. And a lot of the time experts, we make the assumption that, the best thing for you is a comprehensive financial plan. And clients are looking there going, I don't even know what that is. I just know that I've got a real debt problem and I'm not managing my cash flow and I'm paying a lot of fees. How's that going to help me? You with me? We make the assumption in the linkage and sometimes they don't. At some point when they get to understand what you do, they're probably going to go, you know what? I might actually engage. I might put my hand up and make myself known, in which case, but it's low risk. And they cross that threshold from being a passive engager to actually being comfortable on your radar. At that point, you can start to build trust, which is understanding is knowing what you do. Having trust is when they start to emotionally believe that what you can do can actually help them, right? It's the difference between, a coach turning around and saying, I've got all this stuff, to you going, that's someone who can actually make a difference. Eventually, the next step is personal one-to-one contact. And David, this is where the sales kicks in, which pays you engage. And what we're doing right now is we're incentivizing them to act. We're getting them to work, to act now, to take the advice, to move on it, removing some of the obstacles. Is that clear? I hope it is. Right. So that's all great. But what do we do with it? And that's what we're here to talk about today. We've laid the foundations. Let's talk about what we do with it, right? So key principles. Let's get these right. The first one is all about sustainability. Now, we're going to talk about a bunch of marketing activities today. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of stuff. And sometimes people ask me, what should I do? Should I do video? Should I do Facebook? Should I write content? Should I do networking? Should I build a referral network? And the easiest answer to this question is you should do whatever you find easiest to do. In other words, if you find it really easy to sit down and knock out an email or an email and a blog in 20 minutes, great, that's your thing. If you don't, probably should stick away from it because there's a good likelihood that's not going to become a habit, right? I used to go to boot camp. Well, I, as you know, I talk about it all the time, but for a long time, I didn't go to boot camp. After when Hermione was born, we made a decision that, we got a baby and it's a long way from where we were living now. So I started to go to Virgin Active in Moore Park. But you know what? It didn't stick. Why? Because it was out of the way. It felt like I had to go there at a certain time and I could never get in the classes I want. And it just became something I didn't do because it wasn't easy. It didn't fit in. And what did I do? I realized that was the case. So I went, you know what? I need to go back to boot camp. It was simple. I had a routine. It fit in with what I did, and I wasn't trying to force myself to do weights. I just went down the beach and it was done. Is that making sense? I mean, imagine some of you have got some habits that you find really easy to do, and you've got some stuff that you don't. Now, hopefully the habits that you find easy to do aren't too unhealthy. But if you've got easy things, if your thing to get fit is to grab a punching bag and go and beat it up for a while, or your thing is, I'm going to grab a video every time I come out of a coaching meeting and just go, hey guys, it's Stuart here. I want to tell you a bit about this, this, and this. Do that. In other words, do what comes easy to you. Don't try and do what other people do. And this is the reason why, if you're going to make this work, you have to be consistent. There's absolutely no point in you starting down the marketing journey if your plan is to do a blog every 2 months or a video every now and again. A lot of what we covered off at This Is Marketing was from this man, Seth Godin. As you can see, Seth, the 5-year overnight success of Seth is, by the way, this is the theme that you're going to see a lot with marketing. It is not, to achieve massive success requires a runway. But when you get there, wow. As you can see, that number down there is probably the most interesting one. Seth Godin's only taken 22 days off not writing in the last 5 years. Now, it's easy for him because A, Seth writes well, but B, he writes short posts. He's got that habit. Paulo Coelho is another one. If you listen to him, he talks about the fact that every morning, rain, hail, or shine, he writes. And most writers have this habit. Now, I'm not saying you have to sit down and write for 4 hours every morning, but consistency is key. So whatever you choose to do it regularly, ideally on the same sort of day, and have some consistency in themes you put across. Hey, I want to ask a question. About 3 or 4 months ago, I'd like some feedback on this. There was maybe a bit longer actually. There was a whole article that came out about a new thing they launched called China's social credit system. I don't know if you read about that. I'd love to know what you think of it. Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, in China, they have a system whereby if you do good things, you're good. Yeah, sort of totally like Black Mirror. Yeah, exactly. You get a score. And that score then feeds into your ability to get credit, to access services. In other words, if you're a good person, you get benefits. If you're a bad person, you get penalties. What do you think of that? David, I'd love your opinion on this. Elizabeth, I know you're in the car, so don't type. It's okay. It's scary, Af. Fair enough. Mary, what do you think? Michael, ditto. Nina, what do you think of the social? It sounds like a religion to me. Yeah, you could argue. It's very, there's definitely a moral code there. And I guess the scary thing is when there's a moral code for judging people, it's who gets to decide. Michael, dude, you took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, who gets to decide what is good and bad? Well, in China's case, being a, what is it called? Democracy with Chinese characteristics, a centralized government, tough, but it will bring your profile to the front. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because some would argue we already have that. Society's always been about noodles. If you go and get a loan, if you go and try and get a loan for a house, they're going to assess, how much do you fit in with our expectations of what a good mortgage paying client is going to be, person is going to be. If any of you as business owners have gone and tried to get loans from the bank, particularly in startup mode, they want to know, show me your income. Well, there's my income. Great. Now pull out the business details. I'm like, hold on a moment. Do you normally ask, people who work for other people to go out and go back to AMP? I work for AMP. Great. Can you go and get AMP's account so I can look at it, right? Basic Skinner rat training needs to be. Well, here's the thing, and this is the relevance. I want you to think about this in terms of you engaging your target market, because your ability to get them to engage you is going to be dependent on the amount of social credit you've built up. You with me? The more value you create for clients without expecting anything back, the more likely they are going to be to come in and want to engage with you. Does that make sense? It's kind of like a brownie point system. In other words, the whole sell thing doesn't work because it's, I want something from you. It's like we've spoken at the accelerator about the relationship game. If you want to form great networks, it usually has to begin with, how can I help you? The best relationships are reciprocal, give and take. If you want to see sort of people not liking to be asked for things, and it's human nature. I'm not making a judgment one way or another, but you watch people walking down the street past a homeless person who's begging. Most people will ignore it. Why? Because that person they don't know is asking them for something. Does that make sense? So one of the things I want you to get, if this is going to work, is I want us to get in the habit of offering at least 2 pieces of value before you make an offer. Value, value, and ideal value offer. In other words, if you're going email marketing, valuable piece, valuable piece. Hey, would you be interested in my thing? If you're working with other businesses, how can I help you? Can I do this for you? Hey, would you like to help me back? You with me? This is really key because pull-based marketing is far better to do, and reciprocal marketing and all that sort of stuff. The key to this is doing useful things. In other words, putting stuff out that's relevant. And we talked a bit about this at the Accelerator. We've spoken about it, which is at the top of your funnel, it's probably not going to be about what you do. In fact, unless your market are actively looking for financial advice, in other words, they're out there, and let's be honest, the majority of Australians aren't right now. They're not going to be looking to you as a source of information and a source of readership if all you're talking about is what you do. Does that make sense? Now, I know a lot of you already don't do this, but I just want to hit that home. And by the way, another thing we really need to do is when you're putting it out there, and again, this is a kind of taking up a level, but it really helps if you can back up your marketing with 3 things: analytical data, social data, and visual data, which is why infographics, third-party verification, celebrity endorsements, all that sort of stuff works. Final thing before we, second last thing before we go. This is a game of building and nurturing. Your clients that are coming in are going to be in one of 4 places. If they're down here, awesome. You don't need to sell them. You just need to get them in the room and talk about what they want, and they'll match it up. In other words, they already decided some time ago they need advice. Some people know you exist, but they may not be sold on it. There's some people who know they've got a problem, but they're not yet ready to engage. And there's some people who just don't know what they don't know. And the problem is if you're not thinking about that in terms of a forward journey, in other words, if they're coming into your funnel or coming into your marketing and they're here and you're going, hey, come meet with me, then they're just going to drop off. It's going to be like that leaky bucket thing. Does that make sense? Final thing before we get into the doing, I'm going to show you some real done for you stuff now. I want you to play the long game on this. You know, there's a lot of marketers and there's a lot of coaches who will turn around and say, hey, I can build this for you and we can have leads coming in 6 months. And do you know what? I've worked with coaches and I've seen coaches who have these case studies of, I brought this business and a week later or 2 weeks later. But what you understand is the businesses, in most cases that these coaches were working with, they already had the marketing in place. They already had the offer. They already had the funnel. They just weren't doing it quite right. And they were able to tweak it. Now, I'm hoping that some of you have got this in place and we can just tweak it, in which case, bang, we're away. We just need to put something in the funnel. We need to change something. Alternatively, we need to do more of something, in which case you can scale it up. But in most cases, most businesses will look at it and go, right, I need to build some things. And you know, what's that Tony Robbins said about overestimating what you can get done in a year and underestimating what you get done in 10? Well, I want you to look at this and say, this is something that if you want to build it over time, you'll get it right, and you'll get it right in such a way that in the future, leads are going to come to you because of what you did over the next year or 2. Is that cool? Right. Do me a favor. I'm going to have a quick slug, but you know me, above average need for reinforcement and feedback. So what's making sense so far? What's working for you? What's been useful so far before we get stuck into some of the doo-doo? Doo-doo? That sounds terrible. What's working for you so far? David, Elizabeth, Jared. Jared, so pleased you sort of joined us today. The need to be consistent and not too salesy. Yeah, and the easy way to be salesy is just talk about amazing things and really go in there with the intention of helping, and then leave your little sales pitch for the PS. And I'll show you how to do that. David, the long game. Yeah, absolutely. In particular in your market, David. Because they're going to be very connected and there's a lot of trust that needs to come in there. Giving value before making an offer. Love it. Knowing it's a long journey. Jared, I'm telling you it's a long journey because I want you to stick at it. Not saying you won't find a sweet spot and just go, wow, that's totally possible. But if you're in it for the long haul, then you know you're building towards something and you're going to succeed. You know, because everybody here, the fact that you're here and I know you and I know that you're hard workers and I know you're good at what you do and I know you want it, you're going to crack this nut. You'll only be the granny on the computer if that's where you're at for a very short period of time and you're going to be moving towards the guru. And remember to let clients know what else you do. Yeah, we're going to be talking about seeding, Mary. Seeding, by the way, in all of your marketing, whether it's a video, I want you to have a little place where you talk about what you do. It's like product placement in James Bond movies. We just kind of show them, hey, I had this meeting and I did this for a client and we got this outcome. You with me? That's how you let clients know what you do without having to put it in their face. Okay, shall we do the how? Let's do the how. Okay. At the Accelerator, we did the bingo thing. Do you remember? I said, okay, let's look at the funnel. Where would you put live online events? And where would you do this? And we shot around some ideas. Well, I want to pull these out and kind of put a different sort of frame on it. There's a bunch of different ways that you can cut And by the way, if you have this page, feel free to pull this out and work through this with me, because this is my take on, for most advice businesses, this is the way it's cut, but you might be different. Again, I'm sort of having a look at the average advice business. You might have some special skills and special capabilities, which means this is different. But generally, I'm going to come at this from two angles. I'm going to say there's certain marketing activities which belong at the top of your funnel, that very know, possibly understand. Then there's some that only should be introduced at the bottom of your funnel. That's the too soon thing. And I'm also going to say there's some that are hard to do. And again, this is going to be very personal. And there's some that are relatively simple. Is that cool? And by the way, if you have a variation here, if you don't agree with it, particularly on the hard simple, pop it in the box and let me know. Because first one, organic SEO. That's a top of funnel thing. That's getting people, for people who aren't familiar with SEO, it's simply having your website, your blog set up. So when Google does its sweep, it picks up a keyword that says, this is an article about budgeting for mums who live in Mount Eliza. And then if a mum in Mount Eliza is typing in, what's the best budget for a mum in Mount Eliza? Boom, Google's going to find you. And it's about setting that up so the traffic comes that way. Top of funnel, totally. It's getting them on the website. In most cases, for most people here, it's going to be hard, not because it's a difficult technical thing to do, but simply because it's time consuming. If you've got someone in your business, they can do it pretty quickly. AdWords, same deal. AdWords is, as opposed to going out and doing the SEO, you pay a certain amount to Google, which puts you on people's websites, puts you on the paid thing. And for example, if someone hits your website and you've got AdWords, you can basically follow them around the internet a bit. I'm sure people have had that stalky thing. I'd imagine some of you have probably hit our website, then gone away to SMH or something and noticed we've got the practice scale roadmap. That's AdWords. That's a little bit of paid to market to specific people. Google listings, really simple. By the way, if none of you have updated your Google listing, do it now. Because if I type in, I need a financial planner near me, I need a financial planner in Mount Eliza, Google listings is going to come up with a map. There's going to be you on there, a link to the website. It's a no-brainer. Get that done straight away. LinkedIn posting. Depends on whether your market is on LinkedIn. Mine is. A few of you, and it also depends whether you're connected to your market. If you're not, I suggest, if all of your connections are financial planners and you don't work with financial planners, I would suggest that potentially you need to look at connecting with some of your clients. Very simple. Go and write an article. You could already be doing it. Put it on LinkedIn. Facebook campaigns, they're sort of top of funnel, but people need to kind of know a little bit about you before they do it. You with me? Simply because people can argue with me, but people don't go to Facebook looking for financial advice. People go for Facebook looking for cat videos. Financial advice is kind of one of those things that people don't want to see. So it tends to be a bit further, closer down the funnel. People already know you, but it's hard. Facebook's got more and more expensive. You've really got to hit the mark and all sorts of other stuff. It's challenging. If you have questions, come in. Print media. Again, top of funnel for me. Print media is expensive. It's marketing via memes. You could totally market via memes. Yeah. But again, Troy, and that's really interesting because at the top of your funnel, it's a classic. I'm not marketing advice. I'm marketing. You need to know who I am. The key thing for there is your marketing is via memes. How they're going to take the next step. At some point, you need to go from known to understood. And Carl Richards has managed to do it, actually, now that we think about it. That's probably a really good example of marketing at the top of the funnel, which then leads you to take an interest. Print media. We're going to go a bit later, so hopefully that works for everyone. Telemarketing, personally, I think it's dead for the most part. Networking kind of sits at the top of the funnel. It's fairly easy. Referrals and strategic partnerships, again, top of the funnel. That's going to get people in. I think referrals is probably simpler than strategic partnerships just for the time it takes. Joint ventures are even harder. Speaking, I think, is a great way of doing it. I mean, speaking is one of our best lead generation opportunities, but it depends on whether you're a good speaker. It depends on whether you've got the connections. Co-hosted event, bottom of funnel. People are not going to come to your event, even if you're partnering with a strategic partner, unless they trust the partner or they know you, but relatively simple to do. Lead magnet early on. This is a white paper that sits there as well. Is this useful? Online events, fairly simple, but people need to know who you are before they do it. Live events, harder and harder to do. Paid consultation, I think, is easier, but again, people need to already understand and trust that you can help them. And then finally at the bottom, 15-minute strategy call, free discovery session. Have I missed anything? Probably. Should we move on? Let me know if there's any questions along the way. Now, the funnels I'm going to show you, and this is the bit where I blow you with the, you would have seen one like this. And this is the complicated version. I'm going to give you the easy version. This is the bit which shows you your partner funnel, your referral funnel, and your online funnel. And it goes from know, understand, trust, engage. But I'm guessing you're not here because you want to be shown that complex diagram, are you? Maybe you are, but let me break it down. So the first one I want to talk about is your partnership funnel. And we're going to draw it straight from the work we did at the Accelerator, but I'm going to go into a bit more detail. Do you remember that exercise we did at the Accelerator? I loved it. We started off by asked everybody in the room to grab a piece of paper and write down where your last 5 great new clients came from. And it wasn't like, yeah, they came from England. They drove all the way from the airport. Or I'm not sure. I think they might have come from McDonald's before they met me. It was like, were they a client referral? Were they a personal network? Were they a strategic partner? Did they come from online? For those of you in the room, remind everybody, what did you take from that conversation? What were the trends that you saw come out of that? I'd like 3 trends. Give me 3 trends before we move on. What do you remember as being the key takeouts? When we tallied everything up, we went around the room and went, what were your 5? What were your 5? What were your 5? And we had this tally up on the board where they came from. Troyden, yeah, the vast majority came from referrals. Where else they come from? Referrals were a large part. They're absolutely a large part. In actual fact, referrals were the majority of it. It wasn't a surprise. It kind of reiterates what we already knew. And research shows that client referrals, strategic partner referrals, partners, other advisors are the most common source of leads, existing clients, Nina. The second thing which came out of it, which I think it was interesting and maybe surprised everybody, was how strong the online thing was. How a number of people had generated leads from online. I think it was second in the total list. So while we go through the funnels in isolation, I want you to be thinking that actually they work together. Okay, so we've got a partner funnel. By the way, as I mentioned, this is just one view. I wanted to give you a done for you, here's what to do, here's it laid out, rather than kind of go, yeah, you put it together. But at the end of the day, there are variations on this. And if you want some help, I'm happy to do it. First step, if I'm building a funnel for partners, the first step in my know I exist is I would definitely make sure that every month I'm getting on the blower and I'm raising a relevant topic. Hey, David, hope you're well. I wanted to check in. How's business? How's things going? What's news? Is there anything that you think is happening in your world, accounting, law, which is relevant that I should keep an eye out for my clients? Anything I can talk about? You got any articles you want me to? By the way, I want to let you know I had this really interesting client meeting. It was this client who was in this situation. They had this problem. I reckon it might be pretty common. I just want to let you know. I'm happy to shoot you through an email to sort of outline it. But if you see anybody like this is a big opportunity for you to kind of step in and raise it and potentially add value. Is that making sense? So in other words, we're giving your partner with that conversation some ammunition, that top of mind stuff. No problem, man. I will record it, David. You'll have it. The second thing I would do is I would be doing every month, or alternate months, I'd give that partner, I'd get this in the agreement straight up that I will give you a blog. Could be an old blog you've written, but it's relevant and you can publish it to your list. If you're going to do this, it's really important you have a partner that's marketing. You might consider, if you've got 5 great partners, I would have a networking group that meets every couple of months or a month. You get together and each time one of you is a speaker. So Jarrett, it's your turn. You get up and talk about your business. You talk about your clients. You talk about what's going on. You talk about how you're marketing. You talk about the connections. Then next month I'd get up and talk. And I would do that monthly and I would make it like a business support group. And finally, I would definitely consider the gift box strategy we looked at the Accelerator. That idea of having a pack that you can give to your partner to give to their new clients, which introduces your services and makes your partner look like an absolute legend. Here's the thing, the tipping point of this, the bit that makes them go from I know you to I understand you, is every time you send out one of those emails, the stuff we spoke about in the client engagement blueprint or the stuff from the video blog flash planner or just the content monster module. Let's say, hey, I wanted to let you know about this amazing thing. Here's the value. I see it. Hope this is useful. P.S. Thinking of running a boardroom event in the next couple of weeks. We're going to bring along a speaker and the topic's going to be this. I'm going to keep it to about 20 people and they're all going to be in this persuasion. If you'd like to come along or if you know anyone who'd like to come along, let me know and I'll book you a space. Alternatively, hey, it's coming into Christmas. And a couple of people have said it's an opportunity over Christmas to review this, and this. If that sounds like something you want to do, let me know. Hey, I've just implemented this new software system, My Prosperity. I'd love to give you a license. If you're interested in getting cash flow under control, do this. Make sense? No problem, Michael. Thanks for joining me, man. That's really key because that's the bit that's going to turn normal content into conversion content. Is this useful? So at this point, Their partners, that your partners are putting your content in front of them, and the PS offer maybe leads them to a website visit. You want your website to be really schmick. You probably want an update blog page. You want them to let them know all the stuff you do, and you want on your homepage. Much like if you want to check out what this looks like, go to our webpage, ourdairy.com.au, and see right there underneath it is download our thing, because the thing that's going to get them from I understand you into I can build a relationship is that when you download that lead magnet and get the email. Alternatively, if you don't have any of that, I would suggest that every now and again you go to your partner's office and you kind of spend a couple of days there, and you get the partner to casually introduce you. Hey, I want to introduce you to Jared. I just started working with him, and you sit down. There's no sales. It's just a chat. In other words, they're getting to know you, understand what you do. Make sense? At some point, if you want them to trust, I'd be looking at, can we run a co-hosted event? Can we run a boardroom session? Maybe you do an extended video. What URL? It's ourdairy.com.au. It's terrible, terrible name. Well, I like it, but a lot of people tell me it's really hard to remember. Shouldn't say that. Maybe you do an extended video. You record a 3-part video which talks about how to get your budgeting sorted for Christmas. Whatever your thing is, if for those of you who've done a bit of work on like your own online course with the Ultimate Trip Buyer on the members site, or alternatively, some of the Value Bomb stuff, this is what I'm talking about. Maybe you have a quiz that you run, like a wealth fitness thing, which like Paul Feeney has. Or maybe the next step is they've seen your stuff, they've seen your stuff coming through, and that potential client goes and talks to the partner and says, hey, I've seen a lot of stuff coming through from Nina. Is she a planner? Can you tell me a bit about what she does? At that point, you've got that pull. Potentially you co-meet with the partner. Hey, let's sit down and have a chat. Let's talk about this 15-minute quick chat or a discovery plan scope. Is this making sense? Is this making sense that when you structure it in a certain way, and you don't have to have all of these, by the way, you can have one, the natural flow becomes a lot easier. Suddenly it feels like it's their idea to come and see you rather than hitting them too soon. Nina says yes. Hopefully this is useful. Should we look at another one? Or should I just stop the webinar? Joking. Okay. Let's thank you for the feedback, Nina. I very much appreciate it. You know me, above average need for feedback. The second thing I want to talk about, let's talk about your referral pipeline, client referral or advocate pipeline. The reason this matters is the reason we discussed the accelerator. If you look at the top 10 word of mouth categories discussed by Australians, what you'll notice is there, parked nicely at number 8, is 40% of Australians, or 39% of the population, talk about finance or investment with their friends. Does that surprise you, or is that bang on the money? It surprised me a little. I'm grew up in England for a long time, and English people don't tend to talk about money. But so that surprised me how many people do. Yeah, I thought it'd be less too, Nina. I totally did. So let's talk about your client referral funnel. Again, top of the funnel. How do you get them to know you? Well, one way you could do it if you are on social media is actively engage and like your key clients' posts on Facebook. Why? Because if you're commenting, their friends are going to see it, and potentially they go, well, who's that dude? Or who's that dudette? I probably shouldn't say dudette. You could structure your fortnightly content. So every now and again, there's an email that is, look, this is a really big issue I want to talk about. Most people don't know about it. Most people don't know about, principal interest. Most people don't know about the fact they're paying twice for the same insurance. Most people don't know how useless their insurance and super can actually be. Not all insurance. You get the idea? As well as you could reach out to clients that you know are socially connected on a regular basis and have check-in calls and emails. In other words, hey, I just want to check in. How's it going? And potentially, carefully put forward the idea of a referral. Let's say at some point your clients share the article, or they're having the conversation. Suddenly the fact you've checked in and you've spoken about that issue, or alternatively, you know what? They actively see you posting, they go to your website. And again, there's a lead magnet. There's the homepage. They look at your blog. Again, the tipping point is when they download the lead magnet, you get the email. They're on your list. You can start to market to them. Then you'd have an automated welcome sequence. 4 steps. A little bit about welcome to the list. I want to tell you a bit about what I do, bit of this, bit of that. And then off the back of it, a bit of an offer. You could then start that. This is when your fortnightly email starts going out. It's an email, short email, which leads to the blog with that PS offer over 4 to 6 minutes. Retargeting, which is the AdWords thing. Someone hits the blog, and then it puts that little sort of marker on their browser, and they go off and they see your advert. Very cheap and effective way. And then every 3 to 6 months, you're just checking in with these clients refer to say, hey, what's going on? And then they possibly even give, as a result of you being top of mind, they mention to their friends, hey, did you get what you needed? Did you speak to them? Ultimately, that should not have co-meeting there. What you're aiming for is they do a 15-minute call. They reach out, or there's an intro by email. We've got a template for that under Relationship Game, and that leads to a discovery session. This is making sense. Thank you so much for sticking on. I'm going to be here 5 more minutes. I hope this is useful. It will be worth it. Final I want to talk about is online. And I've had people come to the accelerator and say, hey, I really like this idea of doing online, but has it actually worked? I did a Facebook campaign once and I didn't make any money. How much did you spend? About $20. But the truth is that online is a more difficult thing to get right. But the thing is, it's completely scalable. And Ruben's a good example of that. If those of you who know Ruben will know he does a radio program, which after a while he decided he was going to turn into a blog. And off the back of that, he turned that blog into a regular weekly sort of communication. And he's turned it into all sorts of stuff. And I was in the car about a week ago, I'm driving back, and Ruben gives me a call and says, Stu, the weirdest thing just happened. I was like, what? He said, I just got a client, really good lead come through. I never met them, never heard from them. And I asked them, how did you find out about me? And they said, I've been a listener to the blog, to the podcast for about the last year. Now that's a special moment, because that's the point at which, remember we talked about the long game? That's the point at which you realize that all of this social capital, all of this stuff you've been doing has suddenly reached that tipping point. And he did it with no specific one-to-one. I think it's a magical thing to do. What does that digital funnel look like? If you want to go nuts, it's SEO, AdWords on website and blog. It doesn't have to be. Personally, I think that's a you can give it or take it. Maybe a Facebook campaign. This is key, Jared. That leads to a quiz. There's a great tool called Lead Quizzes. I'm going to be doing a bit of work on it in the next couple of months. We're going to test it out. We're going to develop a quiz. Whoops. I think quizzes are the way forward. And I'm just talking to Paul Feeney about potentially doing a webinar in the next couple of weeks to unpack how he got over 2,000 signups in about 10 weeks using a Facebook ad to quiz, of which 600 signed up to my plan. I would definitely have a lead magnet. If you've got a great lead magnet, one that you know works on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on the bottom of your emails, which leads to a landing page, which leads to a sign up, and potentially grab some of that content you're using and put it out on social media. That is how you can do it and scale it. And by the way, if you're thinking about that going, oh, this sounds too much, reuse content you're using for existing clients. Tweak it. Ultimately, what you're looking for is that point they've joined your sequence, sorry, your list. Then you have your automated email sequence, which we've already spoken about, that fortnightly email. You can kind of see how you can replicate this, right? At which point you might want to invite them to a webinar or potentially a video course. The trigger is when they accept your offer to come to your webinar or to view your video course, or they interact with you via email. At that point, they're probably going, you know what? I might step forward. They might go and look at your advisor rating page. They might check out a case study on your website. Again, they're getting the fortnightly EDM. They check out the testimonials. Bang, you're in a 15-minute chat. And next thing you know, you're scoping the plan. Is this useful? Jared, still here. Jeffrey, man, appreciate it. Kelly, Mary, Nina's still here, both of you. Sharon and Troyden. I want to give you a couple more. I want to talk to you about how as well, just very quickly. But you know what? I wanted to share the rockstar funnel. I think it's always important to go, well, where could this lead? You know, if 5 years from now I'd nailed this, or 2 years or 1 year, I was totally online and I was this, that, and the other, I reckon you'd be doing speaking gigs. You'd be advisor standing up in front of, your money, your decision, or whatever it is. You'd have great blog content. At the moment you type in the barefoot investor or whatever your thing is, you go, boom, there's your blog content. And you'd probably have a couple of celebrities going, that Jeffrey Wrightson is the best decision I ever made. That Jared Boyd, he's the coolest advisor I've ever had. You get the idea? Ultimately, someone's just going to go, you know what? Give me that lead magnet. You sound awesome. You get the automated welcome sequence. Again, you're still doing the fortnightly email. You're still doing the PS. This is really, again, it's if you ask me what the fundamental building block of any nurture campaign, it's that simple, short, sweet, carefully structured fortnightly email with the PS offer. Maybe you've got a YouTube channel or a podcast. Ultimately, at some point, someone buys your book or they buy your online course. They do the first step. At which point you run a live event, big 2-day thing or a webinar. They follow you on social media and they're kind of sharing your stuff and they're interacting with you. And then they're emailing you with questions and you're kind of having this conversation and your team's picking up. At which point, if you're still in that space, yeah, you are a rock star, sir. You are definitely a rock star. 15-minute quick chat and a plan scope session. So I guess we've spoken about sort of some fundamentals. I keep turning away from the mic. That's a bad idea. But you know what? If you wanted to look at the end of this is what generally a lot of sort of people sort of get to that space. Is this useful? Now, what I'd love you to do is to actually, we're running a bit on time, but I'd love you to take it away and scope out your funnel. Particularly, I'd love you to take it away, scope it, and if you'd like to share it with me, I'm happy to take a look at it, make some suggestions on how to do it, maybe trim it down. But my view on this personally is to start with, do one channel here. In other words, pick one channel. Don't try and do 10 or 4. I've given you some examples. Pick one channel. Pick one thing here or one information source that is going to help them understand. In other words, a blog or a video thing. Pick one thing here. And then here, make it your 15-minute call. I think if you do that, you'll get faster traction than if you try and build it all. And by the way, second thing is you're looking at this and going, you know, I've got 2 things here. I've got 1 thing here. I've got 4 things here, but I've got nothing there. That's your problem. You've got a bridge with a bloody great hole in the middle of it. If it's your website, which is often, to be honest, people say, should I drive traffic? You shouldn't drive traffic to your website until you've got somewhere to capture the email. Otherwise, you'll end up spending the rest of your life spending money on Facebook. So useful. I want to start with a quick question, which usually comes to this point. Do you have to do it? Do you have to be the person to do the funnel? Personally, I don't think you do. You do have to be the person who understands how to market. You do have to be the person that understands what content and what the messaging is. You probably do have to be the person to make the call on the funnel, but you don't have to be the person to upload the blogs, to set up the email sequences, not the content, the sequences. You don't have to be the person to edit the website. You don't have to be the person to do all of these things. And frankly, I can't see many people in the room who couldn't find a resource to help them that would allow them to spend their time doing other stuff better. Does that make sense? So I want to quickly touch on a couple of sort of areas that if you're sitting here going, what are my options? So let's outline the option. Option number 1, which is I think everybody should aspire to, is get somebody in your team who's good at marketing, who's great at marketing, who knows how it works and does it. I mean, ultimately, sooner or later, if you get to that point where you've got the money and the time and the focus and this is your thing, you're probably going to want someone to come in and do it. Does that make sense? Sharon, you'd agree, right? What's your alternative if that's not where you're at? Well, you could go and hire an agency. There's a whole bunch of agencies. I've never worked with an agency. I'll tell you why in a minute. But there are businesses on the program who have. Troyden, I know you guys have worked with one. I think Andrew Masson and Lisa Gamble have as well as a few other people. The challenge with agencies is they're going to come in and they're going to walk you through a process to get to know your business. And that process can be expensive. The outcome can be great, but it can be an expensive process. And you need to make a decision as to how long you're going to need to go through that and fund it. But if you're looking for a gun to come in and really schmick up your brand in particular, then sometimes that's the way forward. So let's say you don't want to do in-house and you don't want to do agency. What are your options beyond that? Well, you could go to, an outsourced provider, someone like a virtual business partners or who else? Go VA, or you could go to Virtual Hub and get someone who is specifically good at marketing. But here's the thing. In most cases, what you're going to get is you're going to get someone who is a technical marketer, a digital marketing manager who can do the SEO, the background stuff, post the blogs, maybe produce some web pages. You might get someone who can manage the social media, but you are unlikely to get someone who's going to be creative, who's going to do the creative. You might get lucky, but on 90% of cases, you're going to get someone who executes. So again, you're going to have to take the lead and direct them. There's a final option, which Elizabeth's not here anymore, but she'll tell, and the one that I particularly are taking good use of, which is there's a number of services out there which I call marketing concierge services. And what they are is you pay a monthly fee and you get access to a team of people, design specialists, technical specialists, marketing specialists who will do tasks. They will format your PDFs. They will fix your website. They will upload your videos. They will upload your blogs. They will set up certain things. There's 2 I can mention. And I'll give you exactly sort of the outline. Is this useful? Would you like a bit of information about this? I'm going to guess yes. We used to use a group called Automation Agency, which is run by a gentleman called Carl Taylor. Now, we use Automation Agency for a long period of time. It costs, I believe, it's either between 273, I think their middle package is about 500 a month. And they will do a whole bunch of things for you. They will do tasks, I think, one task at a time. They take about 3 days for a task. You obviously have to fit in with their system, but they were great for us for a long period of time. We used them for about 3 years. The reason we switched across from Automation Agency, I'll be open with you. Firstly, they don't support Kajabi, which is our new platform. Secondly, I found that the turnaround times were starting to slow down, and we do a lot of marketing. And thirdly, I wasn't as happy with the output. However, if you're just looking for people who can just do the stuff we've spoken about, get this done, in other words, execute some of the things that we've spoken about, that 273 package is pretty good. Is this useful? We've moved across to a new provider called Growmodo. Now, Growmodo is they're actually I think they're all over the world, to be honest. They're originally German, but Paul is actually moved to Sydney. So we're on the phone. I'm like, hold on, this is a mobile number. He's like, yeah, I moved to Sydney. But they are a similar sort of service, but the difference is they support a wider range of platforms. And in addition, which is really important, was important to me, they also supported doing marketing work for some of our clients from time to time. So those of you who know, we've relaunched some of the leverage program packages, and those of you who put your hand up and said, look, I actually like to get access to work with some of your team to implement some of those things, moved, we have that offer called Coach. Well, this is sort of how part of the way that we support people to do marketing tasks in the background. So Growmodo, and they started about $4.95 a month US, all the way up to I think $12.95 a month. So they're a smaller firm, they're a smaller operation. Just started working with them, been pretty good so far. But yeah, there's a couple of others. I think there's one called Half Pant Hippo, which I believe Elizabeth uses. Would you believe it? And then Unicorn Go, which I think Unicorn Go is actually more of a design agency. But essentially, I'll just reiterate. Up to about $1 million, you need to know how to market your business. It is the first problem that you need to solve. And often it is done by, learning, reading, doing webinars like this. But most importantly, it's learned by executing and learning from that. Because I've been coached by some great marketers, but what worked for them isn't always going to work for me. It's like everything. So that's part of the reason I'm running through this, and part of the reason I'm suggesting that, I'd really like for you to come back to me if you're keen to implement this, and don't make this just sort of a chat fest. But you got 3 options. You can, if you feel a resource in there and you want to put your foot down in the market, and this is something you really want to invest in, getting somebody in-house and going through a good interview process, grab the Inspired Hiring on the member side if you're going down this route, is key, and a great resource. And I think eventually most businesses will get an in-house marketer. Below that, the option is what was the option? Engage an agency. But again, you're probably going to do it for a period of time, and it's going to be a really clear focus, usually on branding. The third option is to grab an outsourced provider from someone like Virtual Hub or Virtual Business Partners, someone who can provide those marketing resources. But for most businesses here, if this is your first foray, probably check out one of those concierge services, which tend to be a bit more of a cost-effective subscription service, and you can start to get a handle on what you need before you move up. So that's what I wanted to cover off today. We've covered a lot, right? We recapped on the marketing stuff. We talked about 3 different funnels. I sort of outlined where all of those activities sit on the sphere. Is it a sphere? It's not a sphere. I'd love a bit of feedback. What's been the most useful thing we've covered today? And I know we've gone well over, but I think it's an important topic. And it's one of those things that we need to dive into and give it a bit of context. What's been most useful? And increase it. And by the way, if there's something else that you need, I'd also love to know that. What else can I do? And if you want to have a chat about something, I'm happy to do that. But what's been most useful? What from this webinar, if you went and spoke to someone else, you'd say, this training was great because of this, or I took this from it. I'd love to know. 2 pieces of value first. Yeah, generally, if you're sending out a fortnightly email, which everybody should at least, you should be making an offer every 4 to 6 weeks. And the easiest way to do is when you're doing your marketing calendar, sort of lay it all out, and just have a column that says, what's the offer? And generally you'll have, 3 or 4 offers during the year. Put one of those in there. So great. Nina, Troyden, let me know what's been most useful. Maybe people are still, you know what often happens is people stay on, but they're not here. But anyway, mapping of funnels, Nina, love it. Yeah. When are you guys going to map your funnel? Scheduling a plan. Yeah. We haven't talked about that at length, Mary, but mainly because there's a lot of modules in the program that already deal with that. But I think the most prudent way to do this is every 90 days, take a half day out and plan out all of your content, all of your themes, even try and get a high level what the blog or what the video is going to be about, and then block it in your diary. And for example, when we do our videos, we tend to do them every month or two, and we just block out a half day or a day, and we just, because when you're in the groove, you can talk about stuff at length. Troyden said reinforcing content marketing and needing to map out our funnel. If you want to systematize those clients, I know you guys do a lot of work in the networking space, but generally speaking, for a whole bunch of reasons I won't go into. Next Tuesday with me, awesome. Yes, we got it booked in. I'm loving it. That's going to be fun. We may need an extended session then. I know, but it's what I need to do, and you alluded to it. Yeah. There's a general rule of thumb, one of the many rules in the program, which is cash flow follows calendar. So I often say to people, if you're in a marketing space, which most businesses under that sort of level will be, and if I was to say to you, Mary, if I was to grab your diary 3 weeks back, and I was to grab a copy of your diary 3 weeks in the future, and I could see that there's no time booked in for marketing or networking, I can predict that there's in all likelihood you're not going to generate the leads. It's generally whatever's. If you manage your time with your calendar, which I think everybody should, if it's not in the calendar, it's not going to happen, which is why Rachel puts everything in the calendar. Everything from picking up the kids works like that. Hey, thank you so much for staying till the end. Does anybody need anything else? I sort of touched on a whole bunch of modules. I touched on a whole bunch of stuff. If anybody, particularly Mary, if you want to chat, have any questions about how it all works, let me know. Otherwise, if not, I want to wish everybody a happy Friday. I hope you've got a weekend sort of lined up. Thank you so much for sticking in. Let me tell you what's happening next week. We've got the office hours on, I think it's Tuesday. Office hours are a new thing we're trialing, which is if you need some help. For those on the main program, you can get help anytime you like. But just to give you a bit of a reminder, every week, usually on a Wednesday, I book out a half day. So you can jump in there via the member site. There's a little on the dashboard. There's a thing for the webinar that we've just done. There's also one called Office Hours. Click through there. There's my calendar. Book a time, and we'll get stuck in and get it done. Keep an eye out as well. I'm going to keep shooting through some reminders about what we covered off the Accelerate. I don't want that stuff to go. And also, I'm going to be asking you to do 2 things, which is update me on your one project and the benchmarking survey. But other than that, thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And as always, if you need anything, or equally better, if you have a win and you want to share it with me, please do. But most of all, have a great weekend. I'm out. I'll see you later. So there you have it, guys and girls, the complete marketing system. I hope you got something out of it. It was a bit of a longer module this time around. And no doubt, some of the concepts in there that I'm talking about may not have stood the test of time so well, because as I said, digital marketing moves so fast. And it's getting even faster now with the advent of some AI tools and a whole bunch of other things that are really changing the landscapes. But if you think about growth and you think about what it takes to grow a business, having the ability to rely on a certain quality and quantity and regularity of leads and being able to tie that to activities that you do, that's one of the things that enables high growth businesses. And without that, it's really, really difficult to crack that nut. Anyway, I hope you got a lot out of it. I can ask a favor. I've been doing this podcast for, I think, about 3 years now. We recently made the switch to not just focusing on our guests and publishing monthly, to sort of publishing content more frequently, and in particular, starting to share some of the content that previously has just formed part of the program. I'm very keen to understand how this is being received. So if you've enjoyed it and you're getting a lot out of it, you could really help me out by heading to the review section, putting a 5-star review, putting some comments in there about what you've taken from it, what's good, what you'd like to see more of, and equally importantly, who it's for would be really, really helpful. That's it from me. Stay tuned for the more modules we've got coming up over the next few months. But other than that, I hope you have a great week.